to annually. So we'll begin with a roll call vote. Director Bill Friebel.
Here.
Director Bob Lux is here. Director Donna McAleer
Here.
is here. Director Paul Few. Here. Director Dale Walker.
Here.
Here we have a forum. We will begin with our invocations and pledges of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, and our nation. Help us to work diligently, always for the common good and in the best interest of those who we have been elected to represent. Guide us to be insightful and prudent in our intentions, visions, plans, deliberations, decisions, and their fulfillment. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance, to engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue and discussion with understanding, wisdom, and humility. Amen. If you wish, prior to reciting the pledges of allegiance, please take a moment of additional silent prayer or reflection in the manner of your preference. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Any requests for comments from the public, shall we? None, okay. Do we have any consideration of requests for adjustments to specific charges from the district, Kim? Thank you, ma'am. Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda. Pages 1 through 26 in our meeting packets. Anyone have any questions or require for changes on any of the
Can number 10 be clarified for me? Because I've seen it on last month's and this month's, consider an act upon approving attendance and expenses for district.
Item on every month.
Yes, it's on,
And
I
it's-
think so.
Yeah, it is. It's to cover any expenses that you might have going to conferences or whatnot.
Okay, because we never really discussed that here. We just put it on a timesheet and turn it in.
Right. So you're approving those
Okay,
to go through under that item.
okay.
thank you, Eric. Additional questions? Motion to accept as submitted.
So moved.
Motion by Director Friebel, second. Anyone?
I'll second.
Second by Director Walker. Further discussion on the matter? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Brings us to agenda item 11, Mr. Meeks. I received the regular SJRA Woodlands Division report.
Have one quick item and then Ed has one item. My quick item is I want to introduce you to a couple staff members. In the back, you've seen Aaron and Jason before, but we do have also Malia Good. She's the administrative manager for the utility enterprise. And then in the back, you have Jacob Everett. He's the maintenance manager for the utility enterprise. So Jacob's been here 15 and a half months and Malia's been on.
Years.
Thank you. 15 and a half years. Then Malia's been here just over 2 months.
Great.
So,
And Chris has hit 15 years also.
Is that right? Young man like that? Started
Yeah,
at
much
15
like-
and here you are.
yeah.
That's why his memory is going.
I don't know where it's going.
What were we talking about? Pardon me? Memories? Thank you very much. Welcome to all. Okay, Mr. Meeks, proceed. That's it
That's all
for
I have.
your, okay, unless there's, yeah. That's shown,
I have a quick question.
pages 24 and 26.
I noticed that some of the wells, you did some remediation and you had to abandon one. Is that right? It's on page 35. Am I right? Correct. So, when you abandon one, you just P and A it, plug it, cement it?
Correct.
Okay, and then the ones that, you're doing the rehab on, was there any common thread or were they just mechanical?
It's mechanical, so it's lost in production. So the GPMs will drop down or you'll start getting brass, sand, something else mechanical that causes it. So
So then you clean those out, you just go in and jet them out and clean out the sediment if there's any at the,
acid wash it, replace the column pipe, replace the pump, sometimes the motor, sometimes we drop it down a little bit. If it's in the Jasper, we'll lower it.
that's what I wondered if you were gonna do that, if you're gonna deepen any of them.
Eventually, we don't touch. We leave them, well, we'll rehab them and everything, but we don't drop them because we can't. But the Jasper wells, when we go in, we do usually lower them 50, 100 foot or so.
I have a related question. It's mentioned on page 3 and page 65 that the Lone Star groundwater acknowledges a decline in the aquifer level due to infrastructure problems. Does that mean because the well can no longer be pressurized more to get more water out? So is that what that means? I'm not,
That's the way that I took it when they said it. Eric, I know.
because
you were there.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, that was from my report.
Yeah.
So the current status of Montgomery County is, Lone Star's stance is that they're going to pump as much water as, under the defined future condition. The resultant, what we're seeing is the static water level of the aquifer continues to decline to the point where at some point it's gonna decline lower than the well's
Capability
capability.
of going any lower.
The response is that phenomenon is not an aquifer problem, it's an infrastructure problem.
So that means they want you to build a new well.
Well, that's what would have to happen. Well, not necessarily build a well, but find alternative water source, either build another well or go take more surface water or whatever you can do
Okay.
to meet your demands.
Because it said it wasn't an aquifer problem, but a structural problem, so I didn't know. I was just,
Nobody else has ever heard of that either.
okay,
That's new to everybody, I think,
Oh.
including the professional engineers in the room.
okay.
It's never been referred to that way that I can remember. Every day is a new day. So, let's see, anything else, Chris? Ed? Oh, pardon me, go ahead.
I don't know if, well, maybe we haven't gotten to there on the tax report. I'll wait to that.
It's in the consent, I mean, really.
I didn't know if there was a typo on page 16. It said on the third line here, percent collected for 2022 tax year. And then it says March 2025. Is that 2022 a typo?
It should be 2024, 2023.
It should be 2023 instead of 2022. Okay,
Okay.
Where are you?
right here.
Oh, okay, thank you. You'll make that change, please, Shelley? That amendment to the consent?
Sorry, I just
No, you did
noticed
good.
it now.
Thank you. You did
And
good.
that was page 16 and let's see. Anything with page. Okay. Are we still on the San Jacinto report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, page 29, infrastructure maintenance, aeration basin 1s and 2. It says that they're going to be demolished, awaiting wastewater master plan. So I thought there was only one basin that was compromised, but I guess there's two of them.
Yeah, it's one basin that's split in two to make two basins. If that makes any sense. Make it more complicated.
Okay, it's really one map, bigger basin.
One
With a
big
dividing
basin
wall.
with a dividing wall for aeration spaces.
Okay, yeah, okay. So it's not in service. It's been out of service for over 10 years. Okay. I think those are my only questions.
Good
Mhm.
questions. Thank you.
Mhm.
Further questions, anyone? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Meeks. Mr. Shackelford?
Yes, I want to take a few minutes and talk to you about the email that I handed out about Bear Branch Dam summary. I know you all haven't had a chance to read it, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background and then also tell you current situation and then what ultimately is going to be an ask. So I think you all know that there are 5 MUDs that pay for the operation and maintenance of Bear Branch Dam, 7, 46, 47, 60, and 67. Further on in the email, you will see what your pro rata shares are by MUD. Bear Branch Dam by the TCQ is considered a high hazard intermediate sized dam. Intermediate because of the amount of volume that it can store in the reservoir and also what would ultimately spill over the emergency spillway. High hazard means that there are a certain number of homes downstream that can be impacted by this dam if it were to fail. And also the number of people whose lives might be in jeopardy should it fail. So that's there in the second bullet point. TCQ requires that we do an inspection every 5 years. We've got those going back from the time that we took over the dam. So I know of 2015, 2020. We're coming up on a new inspection any time now. But those prior inspections have identified some things that need some significant maintenance to the Bear Branch Dam. And those of you who've been on the board more than a couple of years have heard about this, but I know there's some new members and thought it'd probably be a good time to bring you up to date. So on the upstream side, the reservoir side, there is a concrete portion and then there is a soil cement portion. The soil cement has been there for 40 years, has the whole dam. But it is deteriorating, and it's been recommended for the last 10 years to have some work done to that. Also, the service spillway, which is where the V notch is in the dam, because of the way it was constructed, it has some voids and construction joints. And also in the past, there have been some voids that because of the way the construction joints are done, there's water gotten under the slab and created voids. So we did an interim repair a couple of years ago, and it was supposed to last until we moved on to the primary project of replacing the V-notch spillway and also replacing the soil cement. So I'm down to the last bullet point or this under historical. So in 2024, we went out for a request for qualifications for engineering firms to do the design work on the dam. We had several firms submit. Schnabel Engineering was the design firm that was selected. They have dam experience across the nation, as did some of the other firms, but we chose them. We also, about that same time, pursued funding to help offset some of the local funds for this project. This was shortly after Congressman Crenshaw picked up the Woodlands as part of his district, and he was seeking projects to provide community project funding for. And so we submitted the Bear Branch Dam. We were allocated 3.6 million of federal funds. Those funds are in place. There is a requirement for a local match with federal funds. And so the local match was around 1.7 just to get it up to the project cost, the estimated project cost of about 5.2 at the time. So I'm down at the very bottom. We've talked about Schnabel. They've submitted to us a preliminary engineering report back in December of last year. And it addressed two things that were anticipated and then one thing that was not. As I mentioned, the original scope of the project addressed the soil cement and the V-shaped spillway. They also mentioned that the emergency spillway, which is the part where once the V notch fills up with water, water spills over the OG dam. They mentioned that the concrete for that emergency spillway is deficient to design standards for dams. That concrete is 8 inches thick. And Eric and I were talking a little while ago, 8 inches thick is a typical commercial roadway thickness of concrete. They're suggesting that it should be 14 inches based on design standards. 14 inches is about what the thickness of an interstate highway is, to give you a point of reference. Now, in the recommendations, they did not give us a cost estimate for the emergency spillway concrete replacement. So we went back to them earlier this year and said, okay, give us a price so that we can kind of determine how this all fits within the budget. And obviously, when you put the two projects together, it's over $10 million, and that's way beyond our budget at this time. So I'll go through some of the estimated costs. The original project, which is the soil cement and service spillway, is estimated at $5.7 million. This is the most conservative option that we're doing. Based on the federal funding plus the local funding, we had roughly 5.2 million. So there's a little bit of a shortfall there. The new recommendation of replacing the emergency spillway is estimated to be 5.5 million. So when you add the two together, you've got an estimated construction cost of about 11.2. Then you add in the engineering, the construction phase services, materials testing, all the things that are ancillary to a project, call them soft costs if you will, but it's a cost that's necessary to be able to do the project. You're looking at a total project of $13.44 million. The reason I bring this up is Congressman Crenshaw's office has asked if there are projects that we want to try and get funded for this current cycle of federal funding. He typically starts a lot sooner in his requests than the other congressmen do. So his documentation is due last Friday. But we submitted a request for $5 million. One of the reasons I'm bringing this up is they also asked for letters of support from the local entities of the community on where you're trying to fund the projects. And so that's really the basis for why I'm bringing this to you is if the project's $13.4 million and only if we're successful in getting the next 5, we've got $8.6 million of federal funds, you still have a $5 million shortfall. Take the $5 million, you've got $1.7 million out of the 5 that's sitting in the bank roughly, because the MUDs had budgeted money for a contribution. So that leaves $3.3 million still remaining in round numbers. So I've looked at how to go about getting that additional money. And there are a couple of ways. One is to continue funding it with cash. And I give you down at the very bottom of page 2, there are 4 columns there. The first column to the left gives you the idea of which MUD has a certain percent pro rata share to the total. The next column where it says 3.2 in bold, 3,200,000 in bold at the top of that column, that is the cash contribution. And so this that column represents what each MUD's pro rata share would be if it was a cash contribution. Now, the next two columns are if the funds were, if the local match was funded with bonds. And I went to the total amount instead of just the 3.2, the worst case scenario. And you can see what the annual expense by MUD would be for whether it's a 15-year or 20-year note. You know, one of the reasons you look at bonds on a project such as this is this project is a 40, 50, 60-year life expectancy. And you want a lot of, you know, talking with your all's audit committee, their suggestion was anything 25 years or older, it ought to be bond funded so that future residents are also helping pay for the infrastructure instead of the current residents. So there are multiple ways to fund this. That does not need to be decided today. The question is, would you all be willing to instruct Eric that you would support a letter of support to the congressman for this additional funding? There are still some decisions we have to make and bring back to you all regarding how the dam, what the design of the dam looks like going forward, if we do the project in phases or if we do it all at once. But if we do it all at once, or even if you do it in phases, additional funds are going to be needed. And this was an opportunity to try and defray some of the local expense. Now, so far, Congressman Crenshaw has had an annual ask for funding, for community project funding. Last year's funding did not get approved because new president had to look at the budget. They pulled out all the community projects from the congressional funding. So we're starting over in some sense, but there is a request. The basic timeline would be you submit the request to Congressman's office. He puts it in a funding package. It gets considered December of 2025, and roughly funds would, if approved, funds would be available along about March or April of next year, about this time next year. So there's a little bit of anticipation of this would go forward. I know he's been able to get funding for a lot of projects over the last couple of years. So he's been very instrumental in bringing funding to the Woodlands. So this is a chance to try and help defray some of the costs on Bear Branch Dam some more. Thoughts, questions?
So the 3.6 is just on hold. It's not been pulled.
No, it's here.
Have it.
It's available, and we've been paying some of the engineering out of that so far. So some funds have been expended out of the 3.6. The Corps also takes a administrative fee out of the funds that are allocated. Because they're not managing the project that SRA is. Right now, they've only taken 10% out of the project instead of their usual 25%. I did forget to introduce Brett Rayleigh, our raw water enterprise manager. Bear Branch falls under one of his operating divisions, and so wanted to introduce him.
Maureen, in looking at page 9, it appears, can we use any of those funds that are available under operating, or does that have to be a different allocation, like repair and replace, maintenance rather? Because it appears as though we're in an excellent cash position. And I also would like to know how much is available at the end of this year for that bond that we will only have one bond remaining open, which matures at 2040. Is that all spoken for, or is that cash available, or access to that bonding, or would we have to get an election?
I don't know about that. Maybe we can look at your budget now and what the reserves would look like at the end of the year that we targeted.
Yeah, right now your budget is gonna look a little more flush because you get your slug of tax money in now and then you end up spending that down over the fiscal year. So my guess is your surplus would probably be lower once you get to the end of the fiscal year than what it's showing right now. But yes, overall, you're right. It's got a healthy surplus. Now I know there's all kinds of stuff that, could get, in the queue
Yeah.
for that, the work that Eric and his group are working on for, sanitary sewer repairs and what have you.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's what the reserve is there for, is to handle major repair, expenses. And so this, to the extent there was excess, not needed for emergency reserves or for some of the other projects that Woodlands Water's working on, those could be used toward this project as opposed to
Mhm.
participation in a bond issue.
All that said, I mean, if we want to begin discussion, I would think it would be prudent to make the request to Congressman Crenshaw's office for the funds.
No, just the district's pro rata share is gonna be more.
Yeah.
This is baking in.
At worst case, if it isn't approved or received, we're still in a position to move forward. I mean, obviously, we're the smallest dog on the sled team here for this entire project. So, it kind of mud 46 kind of leads the parade, if you will.
So would this be one, five, separate requests, or would you say this one with?
I'm having to go to each of the MUDs and at least advise them what's on the table.
I think last time y'all got letters on behalf of each district.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that just as a process. I found the previous
Okay.
support, and it was one letter signed by five. It wasn't by the.
By the
previous
five
meeting.
presidents.
It was by the presidents, correct.
Okay. That'd be great.
That's what was done right.
That's my comment. I would recommend that we submit, open the
Okay.
floor for discussion. Bill, you had anything?
No, I agree.
I agree. Paul? Donna? Dale?
Yeah.
Okay. Seems as though we're in agreement to make the request to
Okay.
Congressman Crenshaw.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Very good
And-
explanation
We'll have,
of a situation like everything else that continues to blow up in your face. When you think you've got something, you find something more. After 40, 30 years, what the heck?
thank y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
We back to the 10-year plan, Chris? Is that where we are now?
That is where we are.
Yes, sir.
All right, so one thing with this year's 10-year project plan is there's not much change to it. So as you know, we do have 3 studies that are underway, 2 of which we have the all mud meetings for, the AC water lines and wastewater plant number 1. With those 2 in mind, and they do kind of drive a lot of the projects, especially the cost in the project plan, we have not adjusted the project plan too much. So the R&R projects pretty much stay as they were. The bond projects that are unfunded, so we have not made too many changes on those. What we did was we dropped off FY 25 and added, I think, FY 35. So you do have a little bit more inflation. You do have a couple more projects on the R&R side. But all in all, the project plan has stayed the same for the most part. But we did give a very thorough presentation at the trustees meeting. So to respect everybody's time, we're just going to point folks to the trustees meeting video to watch that and see what was said and how it was presented. Then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Specific questions, Dale, Donna,
Not at the moment.
Bill? Oh, no. Okay, very good. That's it?
That's it.
That's it.
This
Very
Took
good.
on my time.
presentation.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Agenda item 13. Ed, did you ever talk about is it down here somewhere? Oh, yeah, it's on here. Never mind. Agenda item 13, receive update regarding Bear Branch, Panther Branch and Research Forest Drive drainage project improvements. General Manager Peterson.
Yes, we have a draft from LGA on their summary document. I'm reviewing it right now. I'll provide comments and then we'll schedule a stakeholder meeting hopefully in the next few weeks to hear their update.
Very good. Concludes. Any questions for anyone about the pending document to be reviewed? Okay, agenda item 14, receive update on SJRA litigation. Mr. Shackelford?
Yes, sir. There are two cases still outstanding, the antitrust case and the breach case. Quadvest has filed a petition with the Texas Supreme Court to clarify a ruling by the Ninth Court of Appeals. The court has asked for briefs.
Which? Both?
This is on the breach case.
Okay.
Supreme Court has asked for briefs. And so our recollection of the dates is Quadvest files their brief first, early May. And then late May, we would file our rebuttal. But it's possible that Quadvest might ask for an extension or two before they have to file their initial brief. And so we're waiting on that. And then on the antitrust, Quadvest, again, now going back to the breach, that was litigation against Quadvest and City of Conroe because they both breached their contract. Quadvest is filed, as I mentioned. Back on the antitrust case, Quadvest has filed I'm not sure if it's a petition or just a brief with the court, questioning something that we said at trial. They think that we have acted not in good faith based on what we testified at trial. And so Quadvest is taking that back to the judge and asking the judge for an opinion.
This is the federal judge?
Yes. And so
In Houston.
yes, in Houston. So we're waiting to hear what the federal judge has or wants from us so we can clarify what Quadvest has filed as incorrect.
Thank you for that update. Appears as though not much is happening except a lot of paper
On that,
going back and forth.
there are conversations going on with Conroe about their water needs and potential settlement.
Very good. Questions, Deb? Donna?
No, thank you.
Bill? Paul?
Nope.
Thank you, sir. Good update. Kind of stuck in park, on a lot of things, huh? Way it goes, eh? Okay, agenda item 15, I believe Mr. Shackelford discuss the Bear Branch burn control.
Yes. Back when we had the grass fire there at Bear Branch Dam, and that was summer, I guess it was, because I was coming back from AWBD conference, maybe it was January. I mentioned to Eric that, because several of the directors asked, well, are you going to reseed the embankment where it burned or whatever? And we said, no. Come to find out that grass has come back stronger in the burned area than where the thatch is. And I had mentioned to Eric that maybe something to consider doing a controlled burn every few years to remove the thatch and remove some of the hazard of that. What I've not had a chance to do is talk to Chief Palmer at the fire department to see if there's, obviously there's going to be concerns, but how we would go about doing that. Or maybe it's an exercise that we give them the opportunity to go conduct on our property. Just
You get
something.
to have that conversation with
I
Chief
have not
Palmer.
had that conversation.
Okay.
it's just something that we've talked a little bit about.
There's no urgency.
No. Now, when I did go back there the day of the grass fire, and there's one service road that goes back behind the trees and up on the dam. There is a lot of debris, dead trees, dead limbs, just laying on the ground. And that's throughout the woodlands. It's not just there, but even throughout the whole Bear Branch drainage area, that could be an issue at some point, because you've heard us talk about trees that come down there in the forest in our service area. We just cut them up and leave them on the ground to decay. But during the summer months, that's when it's extremely dry. That's when there's the most danger of something catching fire.
Mhm. You certainly wouldn't want to be responsible for the starting of the fire, even if it was a lightning strike onto a debris that could have or should have been removed.
But I'll have a
in
conversation
retrospect.
with Chief Palmer and I'll get back with y'all.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Yeah, Don?
The National Forest could help too. They have them at Sam Houston.
Right.
And they do them regularly as part of removing the fuel and clearing them out. So I think in addition to the fire department, I think the National Forest Service could be helpful too.
Paul? Good. So you have no further comments or questions for Mr. Shackelford? We'll move to agenda item 16, the attorney's report. Brian Yates, please.
Yes, sir. So legislative session continues to grind on. We are very involved in that, as you can imagine. I had a pretty thorough update on some of the more higher profile bills that we're following for the district clients at a trustee meeting. Encourage y'all to watch that if you're interested. The House did pass the budget on Friday. I know there's been some scuttlebutt about whether the House Democrats would skip town after approving the budget. That's happened before, so we'll see what happens there. But of course, that would grind all the other legislation to a halt. See where that goes, but until there's some kind of, action like that, then we'll just continue to work bills that are introduced and are working their way through the session. I mentioned last week that total number of bills, the local deadline expired last month to file bills. I'm sorry, general bills deadline expired last month. There's not a deadline for local bills, but we're around 9,000 or so bills, about 9.5% or so increase over last session. It's hard to believe that they can keep introducing more bills, even though the length of the session doesn't change. So that's a lot of bills to consider. I haven't done the math on how many that would be per day. It's a lot over the course of 5 months.
Do you have any update on that one bill that was working its way through the various committees and so forth about the location for the meetings?
So touched on that one last week at the trustee meeting. There are a few of them floating around, but the one that we were talking about last week was a bill that
25, 16.
Yeah, 25. Anyway, that bill did have a hearing last week. It was left pending in committee. We did have, I think, 7 folks go to testify, and then there were a number of other letters that were submitted. We were on hand for that as well. That one, we were concerned about industry-wide, that there's some language, I think, the Woodlands could potentially work around it. It will require the meetings to be in the district. Yeah, this is 2561, House Bill 2561. But it would require meetings to be in the district unless there is, I think, no suitable location in the district. That's pretty broad language. There's no definition for what that means. I mean, we would, of course, have to argue that even though I'm sure there's a park and a pavilion in every MUD that could be used for a MUD meeting, that it wouldn't be suitable for being able to handle the audio video equipment that we we utilize for our meetings and to record meetings. Now, a response to that could be, well, you're not required by law at this time to record meetings. So the fact that you're doing that on your own, does that make it really unsuitable? Who knows? But that was the reason we had some concern about that bill for the Woodlands, was just the broadness of the language. And, of course, it makes all the sense in the world for a community like this that has a single, agency that handles your water and sewer and drainage to meet here at this location. But we'll see where it goes. Right now, it's pending in committee. I always remind folks about 85% of bills that get introduced each session do not pass, but always 15 do. Happy to answer any other questions if we have.
There was one other one that was somewhat problematic or.
Well, there's a bunch of them. that are problematic.
We don't have that kind of time. right?
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Okay.
Yeah, once the session ends, as we always do, we've got a couple new directors. At the end of each session, we go through and prepare a comprehensive legislative summary of all the bills that impact our district clients. And, we have district clients in different phases of what we call mud life cycle. In the Woodlands, it's more on the mature end when you're dealing with rehab and replacement, but there's also a number of districts that we represent that on the early years where there's a lot of active development. Different bills will have more importance to different clients, but we do a comprehensive kind of that addresses all those bills regardless of what phase of the life cycle you may be in, and usually try to provide that to our clients in either late June or July.
Great.
After the session.
Very good. Further questions for Attorney Yates? That moves us to agenda item 17, General Manager's report. General Manager Peterson, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We talked a little bit already about the GRP update, which is an interesting meeting. I want to point that out. I asked a question about it earlier. You can read the rest of the details there on the GRP report. We are continuing, Kim and I, to meet with Brad Howe to recap the previous meeting and then talk about the next meeting. Next meeting is this coming Monday, the 21st. We did have some fairly significant ditch work for Mud 60 this last month. Up on Grogan's Hill, north of Research Forest. There's a pretty significant sinkhole and some piping and box culverts under the road that had some pretty significant sinkholes and damage. So we've gone in and addressed that, and it's been repaired. There will likely be some capital work to be done across all of the muds as it relates to ditch work, those of which would be within the budget the districts have. So that one was unforeseen, but needed to be done and utilize some of the budget work to put towards that particular fix.
On that note, I had a note that as to where, because being on this board and on our residential design committee also for that village, I got a lot of emails. What are they building here? And the reason they were asking me, I went back and I said, we got a ditch problem. And I didn't really know that at the time when I was getting all those emails, because I live in that area. But there was a big 4x8 sheet of plywood that said residential development on it. It's a holdover from years ago that they were using to cover the hole as they dug things out, and everybody up and down that road was in a panic. So just black that out. Anyhow, they did a great job. It was fast.
Yeah, they work fast. We, as part of that project, a lot of that sinkhole had gone into the box culvert and then silted in the ditch right there at the crossing. So we went in and actually cleaned out the silt there at the box culverts.
They did a good job.
Yeah, we are finding some of that around the other ditches in the Woodlands for sure. Let's see, we had the first all muds, second all muds is on May 8th. And then also the trustees have scheduled a special trustee meeting to have a discussion about the Carrillo report and analysis, and that has been scheduled for Tuesday, the 22nd. That's next week, so there'll be a trustee meeting there, and then the all muds on the 8th of May. I did want to bring to your attention, I passed out earlier, no action to be taken today, but wanted to bring your attention, we'll put an action item on the agenda next month for a proposed change order on the Spring Creek drop structure improvements, which if you recall, you're a 10% owner in the project. Mud 7 is 90%. And it's that little yellow area right on the edge of Mud 7.
Right there.
Right on the tip of 7, there's a ditch there, just off of Gosling. And what they've encountered since the design was complete was some pretty significant ditch cave-in erosion upstream of this drop structure. So not only did the area of the drop structure get worse since preliminary engineering, but then an area upstream about 50 yards, 70 yards or so blew out. And so this change order would be to bring in enough select fill and slope stabilization filter fiber to run the ditch all the way from the drop structure all the way up to Gosling. So the entire ditch system would be rehabilitated. And if you recall, you know, the original cost estimate on this total was $750,000. It came in at 218. 750 did have some engineering in it, but that's a small portion. So we're still, even with this change order, we would still be under budget and likely have some additional funds available to do some additional ditch work or whatever infrastructure wants need to do. But,
When was the initial engineering completed? As you said, this erosion happened after.
yeah, it was last fall and it started about a year ago.
Okay.
So could have been partially the hurricane, could have been that nasty rain event that occurred last year on that random Tuesday afternoon. Not exactly sure when it occurred. Just occurred after they did their preliminary survey and engineering. So I'll have an agenda item next month to consider approval of the change order. But I would make a recommendation to the board to Mud 60 and Mud 7 to approve the change order. It's a good price, good contractor. So that's what we see next month. Also, no action, hadn't passed it out yet, but wanted to pass these out as well. This is, I committed to, once I shared the results of the criteria matrix for the treatment plant to Corello or Esther and Corello, I'll pass it out to the MUDs. And this is the combined result. And so you can see MUD next to MUD next to MUD, what their selections were on each of those criteria. So no action, just sharing information. Let's see. I think with that, I did want to give you an update on the Spring Creek drainage analysis. It's kind of a multi-county project. The next town hall meeting is this coming Monday, April the 21st. That'll be in Waller. And then the following week on the 28th, we'll be at the township. They'll have a similar to what you saw last year, where they'll have kind of information about the project and likely a little presentation as well. So those are 2 dates for that. And with that, I'll kick it over to John for the communication report.
Can I ask a question? Real quick, on page 53, where it says annual hydrant flushing program, there's no MUD 60. So I don't know if we've already been flushed or going to be flushed. Sorry, John.
Yeah, I'll take a look and see. We flushed throughout the entire Woodlands, so it may be that we've already done 60. I just don't.
It's just not saying because it said flushing in MUDs through 67 is complete, but there's no 60 in there.
Got you. Okay, so take a look at it.
Okay, and I think on page,
You are included in that.
I hope so. This is just a quick question. On the bottom of 56, it talks about residents are eligible up to $150 in rebates. Can you explain that? I didn't even know about that.
John, you want to talk?
I guess
Yep, he has all the details.
He has all the details.
Yeah, so that's one of our customer support services that we provide. Every account is eligible for it. You have $150 coming to you, lifetime. And that's put as a credit on the water bill. And so the items that qualify for that are rain barrels, rain sensors, smart water controllers, native plants. We have a list of eligible native plants on our website. And
I already.
drip irrigation.
I've got my discount. I got my rain barrel.
And it's really simple.
Thanks.
Folks just send us the receipt for either the units or the service. We'll pay for installation as well. And we put that again as a credit on your water bill. So
So-
it's 50% back on the purchase or installation, and then cumulative up to $150 lifetime.
So it's rain barrels and what else?
Rain barrels, drip irrigation, smart water controllers, rain sensors, and native plants.
Native plants.
Rain sensors, okay. You mean on your irrigation, I mean your sprinkler system?
Yeah. Drip irrigation.
No, I meant if you said rain sensors.
Oh, yes, for your irrigation controller.
Okay.
And we have a segment on our website that details all the rebates and spells it all out and how to submit your receipts and so forth. Yeah. Spread the word.
You telling everybody to go out and test their sprinkler now?
We've been pushing the wise guys.
Yeah, you should go out now because winter is gone and you would be amazed at how many things are broken.
Yeah, controller settings are off. They're going off at different
Everything.
times. People expect our ambassadors are out there as they always are year round. I'm seeing a lot more instances of where they're educating folks on watering off schedule. Yes, tis the season.
Yeah, get out and do the maintenance, preventive maintenance. Don't get a bad surprise.
It's only gonna get hotter. Page 60 starts your communications report. Wanted to, first off, up top there, show you how your annual report landed. So 56%, close to that, received a hard copy with their bill. That's a percentage of folks that get a mailed bill. And then another 39% saw it through email. You did have a 76% open rate, but we don't have everybody on that email list. That's why it's important to mail and email. And then, of course, we send it out on social media too. We saw a 31% increase in your website traffic after disseminating those reports. And about $1,500 it costs you to send that out. So I think all in all, a good return there. Infrastructure renewal communications. So community working group, they had their third meeting on April 2nd. I think it was an excellent meeting. We're just seeing the group just engage more and more. A lot of good talk between folks, a lot of ideas, questions. Folks are invested in the process. So that's a positive. We have another meeting scheduled for May 13th. That date is incorrect on the report. It's actually May 13th. That's going to be at wastewater treatment facility number 1. They're going to tour the facility and then we're going to meet in their offices there. Excuse me. We have developed a meeting in a box to facilitate public presentations. And what this is basically is a PowerPoint with supporting collateral materials to hand out to folks. So we can just pick up and go to any group that has requested a presentation. We being a select approved group of presenters, not just anyone. And Eric has already put that to use. We'll talk about here in just a minute. And then some videos are in production as well regarding renewal. They should be coming out hopefully next month, maybe June. We're going to bring forward Water Smart registration updates periodically. That's on page 61 there. You're at 37% of your commercial accounts are registered, 73% of your residential. That's a little low on the commercial, a little bit above average on the residential. A pretty healthy number all in all. We are focusing on water quality right now in the second quarter of our strategic plan. You see that reflected in a lot of our marketing materials. Social media, encouraging all directors to check out our social media periodically, even if you're not a big social media person. But, you know, drop in and see what we're doing. And while you're there, like us and follow us, please. Helps us increase our reach.
Going back to the commercial number. Is that somewhat reflective of vacancies? There's a lot of commercial vacancies, although it's filling up right now, which means more people are gonna be using the water, but do we need to do a push on the commercial side of things? Is my question, I guess, at the end of the day.
Room to grow.
Okay.
It's a lot more challenging than residential because each commercial outfit is different as compared to residential. We can message a lot more uniformly on the residential front. When you compare a hospital to a bookstore, you know, it's a lot different on how you would encourage use of WaterSmart. Not saying we don't make attempts, it's just, it's a tougher needle to move. Takes a lot more investment in doing so. But bottom line, yeah, we need to keep pushing it. There's certainly a lot of room to grow. Yep. We have a kids art contest that is running through the schools. That's going to get up and running here and then finish any day now, and then we'll finish in mid-May. That's fun and exciting. This is our second round of that. And then our outreach calendar. I know that Eric had put that meeting in a box to use already. That was with the North Houston Association, their Water Infrastructure Committee. Eric presented to them on the 10th. And he'll be presenting again to the Rotary Club on May 1st. And we're getting more and more requests. I had a village association approach me just the other day for talks on infrastructure renewal. So we're just trying to get out there as much as possible. I was speaking to that last Saturday at the Township's Emergency Preparedness event. I'll have information on that this Saturday at the Groganville Farmers Market. And so again, just trying to get out there and talk to folks in person as much as we can.
John, one question kind of going back to Paul's comment about commercial and WaterSmart. Is there an 80-20 rule there where like 20% use 80% of the volume? In other words, for the ones that are not registered, that we can focus on the ones that are the high volume users, or because that's where
Doesn't really correlate.
it doesn't. Okay, so everyone uses the water line pretty equally across the businesses.
No, but as far as how it relates to WaterSmart and the signing up of WaterSmart, there's not really a correlation.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is, are there high volume users that are not signed up for WaterSmart where we could see opportunities to, you know?
Visit them in
Percent.
person and hand them a brochure.
That's what I'm thinking, but it would be, I'm thinking there's 20% of those, that Pareto's principle, you know, there's probably like 20% are using the majority of the volume and they're not signed up. Those are the ones I would want to focus on.
Absolutely. That would be the most efficient use of our efforts, is to prioritize that, start with the biggest fish. You know,
You got to recognize, I guess, that, you know, a lot of the owners of the buildings are the ultimate user, right? When everybody inside the building is just renting space, theoretically. That's a complex thing. Some of the owners don't even live in the state, maybe,
That's right.
and don't care.
however, we, you know,
But we have to make an attempt. I mean,
we do, and we're helping them, right? Because what ultimately this is about wiser water use, lower cost to them.
Right.
Yep.
And so, you know, the bigger the entity, the more money, the more savings there is to realize. So,
It's quite simple.
John.
It's free.
no, good point, Sean.
The fact, you know, your point's well taken, John, but I mean, heck, there's only one MUD that's above 50%.
Mhm.
It's tough. For whatever reason, that's not something that is deemed to be important, apparently, to the owner.
Most will just pass it on to the.
Yeah.
tenant.
Yeah, we've encountered that. Put a lot of effort in a couple entities, and I think that unfortunately Eric's point is is right on. It's easier for them to just pass on the cost sometimes.
A couple of years ago, there was almost the size of a large swimming pool behind one of the shopping areas. And I went in and complained to the managers, and they go, "What do you want me to do about it?" And I said, "You're paying for it, and I'm gonna pay for it." So I kept making a pest of myself. And this included banks, several banks. It included a shopping, a grocery store, a liquor store. I didn't stay there very long. And it took almost 3 months of goading them to, I think somebody contacted and made repairs. So I said, "Oh, I did my job, right?" So winter comes along, they didn't drain them. So the first thaw, water was going everywhere. I had to do the same thing over again. And one of them, I think I sent pictures in, it was running down the parking lot. There was about a 3 to 4 foot wide stream of water going right down the sewer. And I had to do it again. And I said, we really got to stop making this a yearly meeting. I said, you need to do maintenance on these things. And it's difficult. So I can only imagine these people were not signed up for WaterSmart, or they would have gotten a warning that there's absurd levels of water going to these businesses. And like you said, there's layers of complexity here because they're renters. Don't care. Now I told them, I said, "You're paying for it, and I am too." So it's a real headache.
Yep.
A real headache.
Or in the middle of the storm, the sprinklers are on around these commercial
yeah.
buildings.
Well, one of them, the water was shooting up about 20 feet.
It's gross.
Yeah. It's just like, I'm looking at this. It's like, here we go.
It really undermines our efforts with the residents. Why should
Yeah,
I?
because it hurts. It hurts. And I tried to tell them, I said, "This is coming out of your operating budget. You're paying for it because the landlord's going to charge you for it, right?" And that got their attention. It's like, "Oh, okay, it's going to cost me." Other than that, their first response is, like I said, "What do you want me to do about it?"
So I'm sorry to beat a dead horse, but
Keep after it.
when we communicate with the commercial properties, are we communicating with the owners or the renters? Or both?
With the property manager or the owner, whoever's ultimately in charge of managing that water system.
The others don't get a water bill.
Sure.
They just get it, not from us. They get a water bill from the landlord.
So for the shopping centers, that would be Regency. So I communicate directly with their property manager who oversees those centers to make those decisions.
Is Regency tapped in? Have they joined?
We have provided them lots of education.
Yes.
Do well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, John.
Keep at it. You're doing great. Okay, that brings us to agenda item 18, General Manager Peterson.
Yes, there was a question posed at Mutter two, and I wanted to put it on all the agendas so everybody knew what our protocol was for identifying agenda items to be placed on agendas for the MUD meetings. We generally request that any agenda items be sent to us by the end of close business on the Wednesday before the meetings. And then on Thursday, we generally finalize the agenda, work out any details with Brian's office. And then that sets us up to be able to start building the packets on Friday morning. It takes about half a day to put all the packets together and get everything ready for y'all to pick up on Friday afternoon. So it's available Friday. So just wanted to clarify what our protocol was.
As to the protocol? Very good. Brings us to agenda item 20. Do we need to go to closed session? We do not. 21 is therefore taken care of. Matters for placement on future agendas. Dale, anything? Donna?
No.
Bill? Paul? Very good. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.